चलिए start.
Welcome all my participants and especially my speakers on this webinar session. Friends, it is nice to share with you all of you that in the first program after this new session, the first HQT meeting was held on 29th July. After this is the first program, and I am very much thankful that Manoj Bhaiya is there to chair the session, the first session of this seminar. And sir, with lot of vision in my mind, I need your wishes, need your Ashirwad to do wonder in this program. And at the first program, I see that around 60 people are there. And one of my friend from Muscat is also joining you to listen you. So the topic is very relevant, such as a recent amendment in the income tax, extension of due dates due to COVID, and several changes have been done in the ITR filings, ITR forms, which sir will also be deal with all of the participants. I would request all the participants that please be interactives. Please put up your questions on the chat box so that we can take up the question session after the deliberation of Manoj sir, so that it become very fruitful to all of you. And without wasting further time, I just hand over the proceeding to Vikas Bathwal, the chairman of the study circles, to take the proceeding ahead. Vikas, please.
Thank you, Vishnuji. I am very much privileged that VIPCA has given me the responsibility of study circle this year for the year 2021. I myself, Vikas Bathwal, as a study circle chairman, along with my team, Amit Agarwal, co-chairman, and Sandeep Agarwal, co-chairman, our mentor, Vidasaria ji, our president, Vishnu Tulsian ji, and along with all other executive committee members and past president, I will try my level best to conduct more and more knowledgeable study circle programs in the upcoming years, which will surely enhance the knowledge of members. This is my first study circle seminar. Today we have CA Manoj Tiwari in webinar session. He will speak relating to recent amendments in Income Tax Act, recent changes in dates, and changes in ITR forms. No doubt he will clear all the queries which will be raised during the session by the members. I thank CA Manoj Tiwari ji for conducting this session. Thank you. Now I hand over the proceedings to our mentor, Vidasaria ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. I am pleased that I have been given the responsibility of coordinating today's session, and our VIPCA team is working very well. This is the first study circle of the new VIPCA team for the year 2020-21. And I see, and I am sure that our new, young and dynamic team 2021 shall be performing very well throughout the year, including this Corona period. Friends, we have at present 722 members, and we are the only association exclusively for chartered accountants in Calcutta. We regularly organize group discussion meetings, study circle meetings, seminars, annual conferences on the topics of professional interest, healthcare, and motivational subjects like how to get success and achieve goals by our members. Friends, COVID-19 has changed the way of our lives, and so our professional life also. We are now organizing virtual meetings instead of physical meeting, and many other ways COVID-19 has changed our lives. Today we have a very learned speaker, CA Manoj Tiwari, with us. Friends, I was going through last year's annual report, and I found that he has guided our members 4 times in the last year, that is 2019-20. So CA Manoj Tiwari is well known to our members, and अभी राजेश सिंघानिया जी ने कहा मनोज तिवारी जी हमको उस भाषा में समझाते हैं जिसमें हम समझ पाते हैं. So he uses very friendly language in our sessions. Today, CA Manoj Tiwari will explain us on the subject recent amendments in Income Tax Act, extension of dates, and changes in ITR forms. Now, without wasting the time, I invite CA Amit Agarwal, co-chairman, to introduce our today's learned speaker, CA Manoj Tiwari. CA Amit Agarwal, please.
Yes, thank you, Vidasaria ji. CA Manoj Kumar Tiwari did his graduation from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. He was adjudged National Scholar by the University of Calcutta. He is a fellow of Institute of Chartered Accountant. He secured 10th rank in the intermediate examination of the Institute of Chartered Accountant. He is managing partner of Manoj Tiwari and Associates. He deals mainly with direct taxation matter and has adroitness in appellate proceeding before the honorable tribunal across India. He has good academic interest too. He acted as faculty for various student programs conducted by ERC of the institute and presently acts as faculty for different management institutes. He is a regular speaker in CP Hours program organized by EIRC of ICI and various branches of EIRC and CIRC, various study circle of both EIRC and CIRC. He also contributes articles in various other publications. Now I invite CA Manoj Tiwari to start his deliberation.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. At the outset, let me thank the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And that too, I heard that Vishnu's first program, first CP program. So it is my onerous responsibility to make it thoroughly successful. I find 83 persons are already logged in. So it is already a successful program because number of persons logged in is 84 now. My topic for the day is very innocuous, simple, innocent one. And I'll try my level best to, if it is not so, I'll try my level best to make it so for you. And I'll deliberate for around 90 minutes and rest of the time, around 18-20 minutes, I'll keep for question answer session. And if there are more questions, we may continue the session, may prolong the session. Friends, the topic for the day is nothing great. First thing I'll talk about is recent changes in income tax. The first change which comes to my mind is section 44AB, the very first section. As we all know, section 44AB, clause A, talks about turnover, gross receipt, exceed or in business, exceed or exceed 1 crore rupees. If I tell you the language, every person carrying on business shall, if his total sales, turnover or gross receipt in business exceed or exceeds 1 crore rupees in any previous year. Please understand, the moment your turnover exceed 1 crore rupees, you have to go for tax audit as per clause A, and the turnover is from business. Very correct, no issues. Now this 1 crore has been revised to 5 crore, provided there are two conditions, and if any one of them is breached, then for you the turnover will be 1 crore rupees. If it exceeds 1 crore, you have to go for tax audit. What is the condition? What are the two conditions? Aggregate of all payment received, including amount received for sales. Please understand, aggregate of all amounts received, including amount received for sales, turnover, gross receipt during the previous year in cash, does not exceed 5% of state amount. And similarly for payments, that is aggregate for all payments made, including amount incurred for expenditure in cash during the previous year, does not exceed 5% of state amount. Meaning thereby that if suppose my turnover is 5 crore, so cash limit is 5% of 5 crore, that is 25 lakh.
कभी आज तक बच्चा को हाथ नहीं लगाया, अपना बच्चा को हाथ नहीं लगाया, इसलिए तनादर पीटा है, ज्यादा मजा आ गया उस दिन में, मजा आ गया। ऐसा पीटे
Please mute all others. Please.
Remove for the program, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry for the disturbance, sir. We have removed that participant. Sorry. I'm also muting everyone. Only the co-hosts will be able to unmute themselves. Sir, एक बार के लिए आप mute हो जाएंगे. फिर आप अपने आप को फिर से आप unmute कर लीजिएगा, sir.
ठीक है.
Okay, sir. Carry on, sir. Now you are fine.
Yes.
So participants will not be able to unmute themselves. If you have got any questions, please type it in the chat box. And those who are watching us on live on Facebook, please put it.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I continue.
Carry
So
on, sir.
I told you 1 crore turnover has been revised to 5 crores, provided aggregate of all amounts received in cash do not exceed 5% of said amount. So if my turnover total receipt is 5 crore, my cash receipt should not exceed more than 25 lakhs. If my cash payment is 5 crore total, my cash total payment is 5 crore, my cash payment should not exceed 25 lakhs. If any one of these is breached, suppose my cash payment is 26 or cash receipt is 26, in either case, my turnover for tax audit will be 1 crore. So that is first thing. Let me give you an example to understand this. Yes. Suppose a receipt I am talking, 4 crore sales, out of which 15 lakh in cash. Partner has introduced 10 lakhs in cash. Loan 15 lakhs by NEFT. So what is total receipt? 4 plus 10 plus 15. Total receipt is 425 lakhs. What is my cash receipt? Cash sale is 15. Partner has introduced 10 lakh in cash. 15 plus 10, 25. Now total is 425 lakhs into 5%. What is the amount, sir? 425 into 5% works out to 21.25 lakhs. My cash receipt is 25 lakhs. The moment I have reached 21.5 lakhs to 5 lakhs, that is 5% of 425 lakhs. जब मैंने 5% से ज्यादा रिसीट कर लिया 425 लाख 425 lakhs, my cash receipt should not be more than 21.25. मेरा कैश रिसीट कितना है 25. ये मैंडेटरीली एप्लीकेबल है. मैंने इसको ब्रीच कर दिया इस कंडीशन को, तो इन माय केस टैक्स ऑडिट विल स्टार्ट एट 1 crore. So is it? I think this is very clear. Next, a very onerous section, section 194N, that is TDS on withdrawal of cash. Please understand, sir, TDS on withdrawal of cash. The section was introduced last year. It has been substituted this year with effect from 1st July 2020. The section ran like this: every person being a banking company or a cooperative bank or a post office bank. So banking company, cooperative bank, any bank, scheduled, non-scheduled, or cooperative bank or post office bank, which is responsible for paying any sum in cash exceeding 1 crore rupees during the, suppose I am withdrawing more than 1 crore from my account, whether it is current account or savings account. If I am withdrawing more than 1 crore, in that case, the payer bank, the bank from which I am withdrawing the money, is supposed to deduct 2% of the amount in excess of rupees 1 crore. Means Suppose I have withdrawn during the year 1.60 crore. So bank will deduct 1.6 minus 1, 60 lakhs into 2%, 1.20 lakhs. Mind you, if I have not filed return for last 3 preceding previous years, if I am the withdrawer, I am withdrawing money from my bank account, the recipient has not filed ITR for 3 preceding assessment years, in that case, the limit will be first 20 lakhs. That if I withdraw more than 20 lakhs from my current or savings account, for withdrawal beyond 20 lakhs, up to a crore, 2% TDS, beyond 1 crore, 5%. More harsh, because naturally you are not filing your return. So in the case you have not filed your IT return for last 3 preceding previous assessment years, in that case 1 crore will become 20 lakhs, from 20 lakhs to 1 crore 2%, and beyond 1 crore 5%. So this is hard, sir. One point, bosses, this TDS will not be treated as income. As we all know, TDS deducted is treated as income. Suppose we are professionals, I have raised a bill on somebody for 2 lakhs. TDS is 10%, so I am getting 1.8 lakhs and 20,000 is TDS. So in my books, my total income will be 2 lakhs. 20,000 TDS means TDS is also treated as income as per section 190. Very correct. Section 190 tells you to treat the TDS as income. But this TDS, which has been deducted by the payer bank under section 191, cannot be treated as income. It has been inserted by way of proviso to section 198, specifying that this TDS, which has been deducted by the payer bank under section 194 capital N, will not be treated as income in the hands of recipient of cash. One more point. What happens if I am a new assessee? I have just started a business. I have taken PAN. I have started a business. I am a new assessee. To me, the limit will be 1 crore, because I cannot file return for last 3 years. I am a new assessee. What happens if I take condonation of delay from the board CBDT under section 119 subsection 2? If I take condonation, if condonation is granted to me by the board under section 119 subsection 2, and I file my returns for preceding 3 years, 3 assessment year, naturally this 20 lakhs limit will not be applicable to me. So, and mind you, they have inserted a functionality in your site, in the departmental site, ITBA, they have inserted a functionality where any person can check, how much, what TDS will be deducted, 2%, 5%, because the assessee is empowered, assessee has been empowered to deduct TDS, and through the functionality, assessee can easily understand what will be the tax. The very next section I wish to talk about is section 194O. This 194O talks about digital transaction. The section goes like this: notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any of the provisions of this chapter, where sale of goods or provision of services of an e-commerce participant is facilitated by e-commerce operator. Please understand. E-commerce, there is a e-commerce participant. There is also an e-commerce operator. Who is e-commerce operator? E-commerce operator is a person who through digital facility or electronic facility or platform facilitates e-commerce operator to trade digital platform like Snapdeal, like Amazon. All these are e-commerce operators. And who are e-commerce participants? Are sellers, trader of goods. E-commerce participant is seller. So if any e-commerce participant is trading through digital platform, please understand, then while making payment or crediting to the seller of goods or services, e-commerce operator will deduct 1% of the gross amount. E-commerce operator will deduct 1% of sale of goods, 1% on the sale of goods or services or both. So if somebody is selling his goods and payment may be made by the buyer of goods, buyer of services, or payment may be made by e-commerce operator. Even payment made by buyer will be treated as payment made by e-commerce operator. This is first condition. And tax TDS rate is 1%. But if e-commerce operator is paying to individual or HUF, if e-commerce operator is paying to individual or HUF, in that case, no TDS will be there, no TDS will be deducted if total value of sales or total value of services do not exceed 5 lakh rupees. And one more condition, that the individual or HUF has furnished his PAN or Aadhaar number to the e-commerce operator. If no PAN has been furnished, 1% TDS rate will become 5%. Please remember, TDS of 1% will become 5%. There is an exemption also to e-commerce operator. Here, e-commerce operator was deducting 1% of the value of goods sold by e-commerce participant or value of services sold by e-commerce participant. So the point is, what if e-commerce operator is hosting advertisement on its digital platform or providing any other service? Here, who is providing service? The services is being provided by e-commerce operator himself or itself. If e-commerce operator itself is providing service, then no TDS, because it is not paying to anybody. E-commerce operator is providing service by itself. Or if e-commerce operator is hosting advertisement on his website, then it is receiving money, it is receipt of money by e-commerce operator from the advertiser. It is not paying to anybody, so no question of TDS. Here, the e-commerce participant can procure 197, he can get 197 benefit, meaning thereby he can apply to AO, his AO, and ask for a lower TDS certificate. So he will be granted a lower TDS certificate by e-commerce, by the assessing officer, and on furnishing of that certificate to e-commerce operator, lower rate of tax will be deducted. So this was about TDS. Now, one big change has happened in TCS provision. tax collected at source provision. And the section which has changed is section 206 capital C. They have brought it two subsections, 1G and 1H. In subsection 1G, they have brought in two clauses, clause A and clause B. So first let us talk about 206C, subsection 1G, clause A, clause B. Now let's understand tax collected at source. They have brought a new section. Every person, I'm talking about clause A, every person being an authorized dealer who receives an amount for remittance out of India from a buyer, being a person remitting such amount out of India under the LRS scheme of Reserve Bank of India. LRS is Liberalized Remittance Scheme of Reserve Bank of India. So every person being an authorized dealer of foreign exchange. Authorized dealer means authorized dealer of foreign exchange. If he is receiving an amount for remittance out of India from a buyer. Who is a buyer? Buyer is a person who needs to remit. Why he is known as buyer? He is buyer because he is purchasing foreign exchange from the authorized dealer for being remitted out of India. Suppose Mr. X. Mr. X's son is studying in Australia. He has to remit 70 lakhs rupees to for his study of his son to Australia. He cannot remit himself. He has to approach authorized dealer. Now authorized dealer of foreign exchange will have to collect 70 lakhs rupees plus 5% as TCS amount on amount exceeding 7 lakhs. Up to 7 lakhs of remittance, no TCS will be collected. Up to 7 lakhs of remittance, no TCS will be collected. Meaning thereby, if he is remitting 70 lakhs for a year, so 70 minus 7, 63 into 5%, 3.15 lakhs. TCS has to be separately collected by the authorized dealer and it has to be deposited with the central government. It will be deposited with the exchange. Now, what happens if Mr. X borrows 70 lakhs? In that case, 5% will become 0.5%. In that case, 5% will become 0.5%. So, 70 lakhs plus 70 minus 7, 63 lakhs into 0.5%. This will be extra collection by authorized dealer. And now clause B. Clause B is every person being a seller of an overseas tour package. Seller of an overseas tour package who receives any amount from a buyer. Buyer, who is a buyer? Buyer being the person who purchases such package, shall at the time of receiving the amount or debiting the amount will collect 5% of the amount as income tax. 5%. So if I am purchasing an overseas tour package for 4 lakhs rupees, I have to give additional 20,000 to the seller of tour package. So his collection will be 4 lakhs for the overseas tour package and 5% of 4 lakhs. There is no basic exemption here. Here the 5% collection will start from rupee 1. If I am paying rupee 1, I have to pay 5 paise. If I am paying 1,000, I have to pay 50 rupees. So in clause B, if any person being a seller of an overseas tour package has to collect 5% of the value of overseas tour package 5% of the value of overseas tour package from the buyer. The collection will be whichever is earlier. Earlier means debit in the books or books of account or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Now let's go into nitty gritty. They have also introduced a section, subsection 1H. 260, we are in the same sector. I told you, 260 tax collection, tax collection at source. In 1G, there are two parts, clause A, clause B, and now the subsection 1A. Every person being a seller, the section goes like this. Every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of goods of value or aggregate of such value exceeding 50 lakhs rupees in any previous year. Other than goods being exported out of India, if you are exporting goods, those are not covered. It will collect 0.1% of sale consideration exceeding 50 lakhs rupees. 0.1% of the sale consideration. So every person, the seller should have turnover of more than 10 lakh crore rupees. The seller turnover should be more than 10 crore, first condition. On receipt of payment from the buyer, if the receipt is more than 50 lakhs, on the amount exceeding 50 lakhs, 0.1% TCS will be applicable. This 260, 1G and 1H, both are applicable. Both are applicable with effect from 1st October 2020. 1st October 2020. So let's understand. If you have taken an education loan, then in case of educational loan, as I told you, the TCS, the amount will be 0.5%. In case of educational loan, amount will be 0.5%. Now let's look at the problem. What happens? Overseas tour package, as I told you, sir, in case of overseas tour package, there is no basic exemption. So you have to pay 5% on any amount you are paying to the seller. Any amount you are paying to the seller. What are the exceptions for 206 1H? Exceptions for 206 1H. Sir, TCS is 0.1%. I told you your turnover should exceed 10 crore rupees. If PAN or Aadhaar is not there, TCS will be 1%, not 0.1%. Please remember. So buyer of goods has to furnish his Aadhaar or PAN. If Aadhaar or PAN is not furnished, in that case TCS will be 1%. What are the exceptions? In case of 203 1H, if when buyer is central government, TCS will not be collected. When buyer is state government, TCS will not be collected. When buyer is embassy, TCS will not be collected. High Commission, Legation, Commission, Consulate, local authority, TCS will not be collected. So I hope this part is clear. 1H. There is one more point with regard to 1G. Please understand that in case of 1G, if a student is availing the loan himself, he may not have any taxable income in India because he is studying abroad. So student will have to file his ITR in India to claim refund. That is point number 1. What if salaried employee remits money to pay for overseas higher education of his children? Mind you, for salary income, his TDS is deducted by the employer. So any TCS collected, whether if he has borrowed, then 0.5% TCS. If he has not borrowed, he has spent his own money, 5% TCS. In that case, salaried employer have to file his return to claim this refund. So these 2 points are bothersome. But since TCS is there, it has to be deducted and collected both. So that was about recent amendments where I covered 44AB, 194N, 194O, 206C, 1D, Clause A, Clause B, Clause A, Clause B, Clause A for any amount remitted out of LRS, and Clause B on overseas tour package, and 1H if seller whose turnover is more than 10 crore and above, and the buyer is giving him more than 50 lakhs. In that case, TCS is 0.1%. If PAN is not given, TCS is 1. Now, Ordinance 2020, along with notification dated 24th June 2020. As we all know, Ordinance 2020 was notified on 31st of March 2020, and a notification has been issued by CBDT on 24th of June 2020. Please remember, please mark my words, notification dated 24th June 2020 is only about, please mark my words, Section 3, Subsection 1 of the Ordinance. Notification dated 24th June, which has given extensions, only talks about Section 3, Subsection 1 of the Ordinance. Now, for your information, I'll cite cases. Section 3 of the Ordinance had 2 parts. Subsection Section 3, Clause A, and Section 3, Clause B. A talked about for compliance, and Clause B talked about payment of tax or levy. Clause A was with regard to compliance. It said that any due date falling between 20th of March 2020, any due date of compliance falling between 20th of March 2020 to 29th June 2020, if not complied within the time, can be complied by 30th June. Now that has been extended. Now it looks like this. After notification of 24th June, any date for compliance between 20th of March 2020 to 31st of December 2020, if not complied between the dates, can be complied with by 31st of March 2020. But please remember, 24th June circular is not talking about payment of tax, is not talking about extension for payment of tax. Means no extension has been granted to you with regard to payment of tax. No extension has been given by notification dated 24th of June with regard to payment of tax. The acts covered wealth tax, income tax act, prohibition of this ordinance as well as notification, prohibition of Benami Property Transaction Act, Finance Act, Black Money Act. These acts have been covered. time limit, where any time, any limit which falls between 20th March to 29th June by notification extended to 31st December. So if any time limit which falls between 20th June to 31st December has been extended to 31st March by notification dated 24th of June. Earlier it was 20th June to 20th March 2020 to 29th June 2020, extended to 30th June. Now it is to 30th, any date falling for compliance between 20th March to 30th December, 31st December has been extended to 31st March 2021, meaning thereby we can comply up to 31st of March 2021, meaning thereby, please understand now. Suppose 148 notice for assessment year 13-14 should be issued by AO, should be issued by assessing officer by 31st March 2020. I repeat, 148 note section 148 notice for reassessment proceeding for assessment year 13-14 has to be issued by 31st March 2020. Now it can be issued by 31st March 2021. So the time limit was for completion of any proceeding, passing of any order, issuance of any notice, issuance of sanction, approval, filing of appeal. Let's assume that CIT appeal order has been received on 1st March 2020. So what is due date for filing of appeal? You get 60 days. 30th April 2020, you must file your appeal with Honorable Tribunal. If CIT appeal order has been received on 1st March 2020, you must file your appeal before Honorable Tribunal by 30th April 2020. What happens? Now, as per the provision, as extended by 24th June notification, now it can be filed till 31st March 2020. And for your information, Income Tax Tribunal, Pan India, are not receiving any appeal till now. So any order, the due date, mind you, although the due date was 30th April, you must file without condonation. Now, without filing of any condonation, without any prayer of condonation, that appeal can be filed before Honorable Tribunal by 31st March 2021. Let's take another case. Form 61. Form 61A. Form 61B. You must be understanding what is Form 61. Sir, Form 61 is filed by the financial institution. Suppose a bank, a commercial bank, you wish to open an account, you wish to open an FDR of 2 lakhs. You do not have PAN, or wish to open an account, you do not have PAN. So if you have to fill up the form number 60, and whatever forms they collect up to 30th September, Form 60 contains of all those Form 60 by 31st October, and whatever they collect between 1st October and 31st March, they have to deposit the details of Form 60 collected between the period 1st October to 31st March by 30th April. Form 61A, what it is, Form 61A, 114E. What is 114E? Rule 114E talks about talks about a specified financial transaction. What is a specified financial transaction? You deposit more than 50 lakhs cash in your current account. You deposit more than 10 lakhs cash in your savings account. You purchase shares of a company for more than 10 lakh rupees. You purchase debentures of a company. You subscribe to debentures or shares of a company for amount exceeding 10 lakh rupees. You participate in buyback of shares and company pays you more than 10 lakh rupees. You purchase properties. You purchase property costing more than 30 lakhs. Sale value is more than 30 lakhs. If your payment is more than 30 lakhs. So here in case of property, registrar is reporting entity. In case of issue of shares, issue of debentures, company is reporting entity. In case money has been deposited in current account or savings account, financial institution is reporting entity. And it has to submit Form 61A by 31st of May as per Rule 114E. Form 61A has to be submitted by 31st of May. So financial year ending 31st March 2020, you have to submit Form 61A in case of specified financial transactions by 31st May 2020. That date has been extended to 31st March 2020. Filing of appeal, I told you. Now, if it is income tax, if you see the notification is written. In the notification, they have written. If it is income tax, then ITR for assessment year 1920, which was extended to 30th June, has now been extended to 30th September 2020. So please imagine, sir, you can file income tax return for assessment year 1920, which was supposed to be filed by 31st March. By ordinance, it was extended to 30th June. By notification, it was extended to 31st July. Now it has been extended to 30th September. So 1920 returns can be filed till 30th September 20. Due date of all income tax returns for assessment year 2021. For assessment year 2021 extended to 30th September. Extended to 30th November. Extremely sorry. Extended to 30th November. So assessment year 2021, all income tax returns can be submitted up to 30th November without any late filing. Because 234F is there. If you do not file within the due date, then 5,000 or 10,000 penalty. And it's not penalty, it's fee. Fee means it has to be paid like taxes. So this year, in view of pandemic, 30th November is the due date for filing of all income tax returns. Please remember, tax audit due date is still 31st October. 1 month prior to due date of filing of return of income. That's what due date means. Tax audit due date means any date which is 1 month prior to due date of filing of return of income. Since due date of filing of return of income is 30th November, tax audit due date for this year is 31st October. Till now, people are saying it will be extended, but sir, I do not speculate. I do not want to talk about it because speculation is always bad. ECS TDS for March 20 by 15th July. TDS TCS for March 20 other than government 31st July. So please remember TDS TCS for March March to 2020, 15 July for government, and 31st July for any person other than government. Other quarter, TDS, TDS statement, what will be the scenario? First quarter TDS statement, when it has to be submitted. That is quarter 1 of 2021, quarter 2 of 2021, quarter 3 of 2021. Let's understand. Due date falling between 20th March 2020 to 31st December 2020 has been extended to 31st March 2021. So if you look at quarter 3 2021, quarter 3 means December 2020, quarter ending in December 2020. Due date for filing TDS return or TCS return is 31st Jan 2021. Quarter ending December 2020. Due date will be 31st January 2021. So the due date is not falling between 20th March to 31st December. The moment due date falls beyond 31st December, that has not been extended. But first quarter, what is the due date? 31st July. So 31st July 2020, second quarter, September quarter due date, 31st October. It is falling between 20th March 2020. It is falling between 20th March 2020 to 31st December 2020. Hence extended to 31st March 2021. TDS certificate under section 192 for salaried employee, 15th August. For others, date is not given. I think others can download. So for them, date is not required. Now let's understand. For assessment year 2021, financial year 1920, if you are making any investment, deduction in respect of certain payment, like LIC payment, due date normally is 31st March. It was extended till 30th June. Now it has been extended to 31st July. So any donation we wish to make, it has to be by 31st July. Now you can't. If you make donations now, you won't be eligible for deduction under section 80G. So 80C to 80GGC, you had to pay by 31st July. 54 to 54 GB, anything for capital one. Let's understand. You wish to invest in property. You wish to pay to promoter. You wish to purchase a property. You wish to deposit amount in capital gain scheme. Due date is 30th December, 30th September to be very precise. 30th September 2020. Because when you will be filing your return will be filed by November. So you can invest up to 30th September for any payment under section 54 to 54 GB. You are making investment in Rural Electrical Corporation bonds, NHAI bonds. You are depositing money in capital gain scheme. You are purchasing land or building. You are making payment to promoter of land or promoter of building. Then for you, due date is 30th September. Due date is 30th September. So please understand that in case of LIC and all, due date is 31st July. That is deduction in respect of certain payment. Due date is 31st July. And for 54 to 54 GB, due date is 30th September. Pick up your Babu. Yes. If you wish to claim, make a claim under section 10AA, then naturally you have to commence your production by 31st March. Production of articles or goods or providing any services you wish to make under deduction under section 10AA. That date has been extended to 30th September. That if you can commence your production of article or things or providing any services and you wish to claim deduction under section 10AA, then you must commence production up to 30th September. So, sir, I made it very clear that compliance date extended. Compliance date extended. But payment of tax, no extension in payment date of payment of tax. I'll give you an example. Due date for payment of advance tax, first quarter, Q1. You know, all of us have to make advance tax payment in 4 installments. 15th June, 15th September, 15th December, 15th March. Suppose 2021, 15th June, you did not make payment. Payment you made on 30th June. So here you delayed the payment by 15 days. Don't you agree? Your advance tax was due to be paid on 15th June. You paid it on 30th June. So since the delay is 15 days, then for 15-day delay, 0.75% per month or part of a month, you must be knowing that the moment it is delayed, even if delayed for part of a month, 0.75% interest is payable. So if 15th June advance tax payable by you was 30,000, you did not pay on 15th June. You are paying on 30th June. So 30,000 into 1% is 300, 0.75% is 225. So you must pay 30,225 when you pay on 30th. But mind you, it has not been extended beyond 30th June. So if you are paying it after 30th June, suppose you are paying in July, like TDS deducted for the month of June or TCS deducted for the month of June. Due date of payment is 7th. So that 7th July has not been extended. Compliance extended because this notification of 24th June only talks about extension of compliance date. Because it has been issued under section 3A, it is not talking about extension of payment. It is not talking about extension of payment. And if you pay beyond, then naturally the interest rate now will be 1.5%. Please understand, now interest rate will be 1.5%, not 0.75%. Interest would be 1.5% per month. So advance tax, as I told you, there is no extension. TDS certificate for salaried employees, due date is 15th August. Others not specified. 61A, Form 61A can be deposited by reporting entity on the digital platform of Income Tax Department by 31st of March 2021. Form 61, same. All other forms and assessments If it is due by 31st December, now the due date is 31st of December 2021. But please understand, no tax payment extension. No tax payment extension, sir. Please understand, no tax payment extension. Yes, if you are contributing to PM CARES Fund, it's a big name. It's acronym, mind you. PM CARES Fund is acronym. Income of the fund, income of PM CARES Fund is exempt under section 1023C. That is first point. And if you are donating to PM CARES Fund, it is eligible for 100% deduction. Any donation to PM CARES Fund is eligible for 100% deduction under section 80C, subsection 2, clause A, subclause Roman 3. There is another press release. This year was full of ordinances and press releases and notifications. We are also finding it difficult to keep track of all notifications, press releases, and also so on. Mind you, on 13th May 2020, our Honorable FM specified that TDS rate now, TDS rate, TCS rate will be reduced by 25%. We are very happy that TCS rate and TDS rate will be. But mind you, it is for non-salaried people and it is for resident only. This 25% reduction, TDS, TCS rate will be reduced by 25% for the period from 14th of May to till 31st of March 2021. They have also specified that Vivad se Vishwas tak payment can be made without any additional payment till 31st of December. Now I am talking about reduction in TDS, TCS rates by 25%. Let's make it very clear that it is for payment for non-salaried people and payment to residents. But no notification has been issued till now. No notification has come. Only press release. 206 0.1% it was, now it will be 0.075%. But please remember, without PAN, TDS rate is 20%. Naturally, it remains at 20%. No reduction in this. Sections where rates not reduced, you must know. Section 192 salary, rates not reduced because it is other than salary. Section 192A, premature withdrawal from EPF, Employee Provident Fund, TDS rate not reduced. Lottery, horse race, TDS rate not reduced. Cash withdrawal, TDS rate not reduced. Foreign remittance, TDS rate not reduced. Yes. They have notified ITR 1 to 7. There is one change, sir. Section 269 SU. Can you remember 269 SU? I'll make you remember. No issues. It may be in your mind. It is not striking at present. Section 269 was introduced last year from in Applied Finance Bill 2019. It became an act. It's part of the act. 269 SU is specified that any dealer, any seller of goods or services, any seller of goods or services must maintain digital mode of receipt. Any seller of goods or services must maintain digital mode of receipt. What does it mean, sir? You must maintain BHIM, you must maintain QR code, you must maintain PayPal. But this was not notified. But they said in the finance bill that if you are not maintaining digital mode of receipt, then from 1st November onwards, penalty of 5,000 per rupees per day will be levied on you. Whereas mode of receiving payment itself was specified in February 2020. So nice of you. But there was a problem. The problem was, suppose I am a contractor. I am a contractor who is executing turnkey projects. Suppose I am constructing bridges and roads for NHAI. I am only dealing with NHAI. All my receipts are through RTGS. My last year's turnover was 900 crores. Entire amount came through RTGS from NHAI. Now, do I need to maintain digital mode of receipt? BHIM Pay, Google Pay, do I need to maintain? So they said it will be exempted. 269 SU shall not be applicable to a specified person in case of person having only business to business transactions, and if at least 90%, 95% of all aggregate amount of receipts are by any mode other than cash. So if I am a business to business entity and my receipts are 95% or more through amount other than cash, then naturally I'm not supposed to have comply with 269 SC. We all must be knowing that this year they said that every organization which is registered under 12A or 12AA or section 35 or section 80G or section 23, 10, 20, clause 23C must apply afresh, must come apply before department by 1st of June, and the process of application and processing of it will be completed by 31st August. Application must be made between 1st June and 31st August. But due to pandemic, they enhanced the date. Now they say that you must apply by 1st October. From 1st October onwards, that the process of application will start from 1st October. It will end on 31st December. Means your application, all charitable organizations, just a minute. All charitable organizations, whether registered under 12A, 12AA, section 35, 80G, 1023C, must apply fresh within the period starting from 1st October 2020 to 31st December 2020. They have amended 26A and they have said that the reporting which was required as per clause 44 is being deferred till 31st March. So, okay. So finally, I'm in last part of my deliberation. Now I need to talk about changes in ITR form. I'll continue for about 25 minutes in changes in ITR form. The first big change about ITR forms this year is in verification form. Please understand, sir, for assessment year 1920, if the form was not verified in the form, in the acknowledgement, there was watermark not verified. But this year they have changed it totally. Now you will have two types of acknowledgement form. One will be known as income tax return verification form, and other will be known as income tax return acknowledgement form. If I have not uploaded, verified income tax return, mark my words, if I have not uploaded verified income tax return, how forms can be verified? Very simple, sir. Forms can be uploaded as it is without any verification, and after uploading, whatever comes out, you sign and send it to Bangalore. There it is processed. That is one way of verification. Other way of verification is electronic verification code, EVC. EVC can be done through Aadhaar. EVC can be done through internet banking. EVC can be done through Demat account. The third way is you upload the form with digital signature certificate. Remember, prior to 2006, all forms were verified. If ITR along with annexures were not verified in that scenario, they never used to accept it as income tax receipt count. Right? Because if you have not subscribed, if you have not signed the documents as well as return, they never used to accept it. Very simple. But from 2006 onwards, assessment year 2006-07 onwards, we had the benefit of uploading the returns without verification. This was a problem with the past. People were uploading the return and not verifying it. This year, you remember, for 4 years, they have come out with waivers that if you must verify, and then you are giving you benefit of waiver for these 4 years. Now, this year, what they have done, if the return uploaded is not verified, what you get after uploading the return will be income tax return verification form. What will be the content of income tax return verification form? It will have personal details. Mark my words. It will have personal details. It will have verification part. But it will not have income details, tax details. Means it will not have computation details. The moment it is not having computation details, it is useless for you. Please understand, if your form, income tax verification, return verification form is having personal information and verification part, it is not having computation part, that is income, tax, liability and tax payment. It is not having that. And once it is verified, suppose you upload without verification, then you subscribe and send it to Bangalore. Or after that, you verify through EVC, or now then you don't have option. So once the verification is done, you can download from the website income tax return acknowledgement form. So this is one big change this year, sir. You know these forms, ITR 1, ITR 2. ITR 1, please remember, ITR 1 can only be filed by your resident. ITR 1 can only be filed by your resident individual. Meaning thereby, if you are a resident but not ordinarily a resident or a non-resident, then you cannot file ITR 1. In that case, you have to file ITR 2 or ITR 3. ITR 1 can be filed by only individual. If you wish to have set up and carry forward benefits, you cannot file ITR 1. You must have one house property, then only you can file ITR 1. Even if you are having joint owner of property, one property, you can file ITR 1. If you are having capital gains, you cannot file ITR 1. If you are director in a company, you cannot file ITR 1. If you are holding shares in unlisted company, you cannot file ITR 1. So ITR 1 has its limitations. ITR 2, you almost, if you are not in business, ITR 2, ITR 3, 4, presumptive income, 5, firm, AOP, BOI, and charities, if they are not having exemption, and then they can file ITR 5, because any trust is also AOP. ITR 6, companies claiming exemption, ITR 7, or any charitable entity. So I'm going into the next slide. So this year, they have changed the form in respect of ITR 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if a person is not having income which is beyond the exemption limit, suppose exemption limit is 2.5 lakhs. So if your income does not exceed 2.5 lakhs, if your income does not exceed 1.5 lakhs, even if your income does not exceed 1.5 lakhs, but they have added a proviso this year. So they have added 7th proviso in section 139, subsection 1, clause B. Clause A, 139, subsection 1, clause A talks about company and firm. Clause B talks about other than company and firm. So there they have, because for a company, any income, it has to file its return. For a firm, any income, for a company or firm, there is no exemption. Exemption is in case of other entities. So in case of ITR 1, 2, 3, 4, they have added a 7th proviso to section 139 clause B, 139 subsection 1 clause B, which says that even if you do not have income beyond the exemption limit, but you have deposited more than 1 crore in your current bank account, whether by way of cash, check, or any mode, if deposit in your current account is more than 1 crore, or you have incurred 2 lakhs on foreign travel, either on yourself or of any other person. Payment on foreign travel it may not be necessarily in foreign exchange. You have incurred the money in Indian currency, but you have incurred more than 2 lakhs, or you have incurred more than 1 lakh on electric charges. Suppose meter is not in my name. Meter is in the name of landlord. Even if the meter is in the name of landlord, and I have paid electric charges of more than 1 lakh rupees, then naturally, sir, I have to file return. Although my income does not exceed. If any one of these conditions are fulfilled, then you have to file your return, even if your income is less than maximum amount not chargeable to tax. Then in ITR 2 and 3, if you are holding directorship in a company, or if you are holding unlisted equity shares in unlisted companies, then they have added a new disclosure norm, type of company. The type of company, I mean whether it is domestic company or foreign company. Whether the company in which you are holding directorship or company in which you are holding equity shares, that unlisted company, whether that company is a domestic company or foreign company. This feature was not there this last year. Another one. This is very cumbersome. This will create hell lot of problems. Schedule 112A. Remember, there was pandemonium last year also. But this year, there will be real problems. Schedule 112A. You remember, sir, this section 112A was brought in by Finance Act 2018. The finance bill was presented on 1st February 2018, and there they say that any long-term gain on sale of equity shares in a company or on sale of units of equity-oriented mutual fund or on sale of unit of a business trust on which STT is paid will be leviable to a tax of 10%. So any long-term capital gain, remember, till that time, before this bill came into being, Finance Bill 2018 was brought on 1st February 2018. Till that moment, long-term capital gain was exempt. So they had to grandfather the provision. What is grandfathering, sir? Since the income on account of long-term capital gain on sale of shares or units of equity-oriented mutual funds or units of business trust on which STT was paid was exempt till 1st February. So they brought out a provision saying that any gain earned up to 1st February 2018 will be exempt. Any gain earned up to 1st February 2018 will be exempted. But mind you, when you are filling up the forms for assessment year 1920, it was specified that suppose you have purchased 8 shares, you have sold those shares, purchased 8 shares long back, you are selling those, and you are holding in 6 companies or 4 companies, you add up cost of acquisition, you add up sale value, and you deduct the profit or loss. Now they are saying that it is ISIN wise, company wise, and mind you, for this it will be a hell lot of work for you. This is applicable to a resident, and next one is 115 AD, same scenario, 10%, it is applicable to non-resident. But please remember, it is ISIN wise, company wise. So tough job for you. At least we accountants, we chartered accountants are real sufferers. Now, separate disclosure for bank account in case of non-resident. Suppose a non-resident is filing his return of income and he is claiming income tax refund, but he is not having any bank account in India. Non-resident filing his income tax return in India, and he has claimed the income tax refund, and since he is not having any income tax, any bank account in India, he has to give, Form 1 cannot be filed by non-resident, so all 6 other forms can be filed depending on his status. He has to give SWIFT code, the name of the bank, country of location, and international bank account number, IBAN. And he can give number of bank accounts. It may not be 1, he can give 6 bank accounts. All can be disclosed. He can choose, he can say that I have 4 bank accounts, you can choose anyone to credit my refund. Because in ITR 1 also, same option has been given. You can say that I have 3 bank accounts. Dormant account, if an account is dormant for last 3 years, may not be given, but all other bank accounts except dormant accounts must be given, and you can choose all accounts for income tax refund. Department will have benefit. Next one is changes, because since investments are being made after 31st March, whether in case of property or deduction in respect of certain payment for LIC and all superannuation fund and all. So payment made beyond due date. Due date is always 31st March. You have to pay within that, but in view of pandemic, certain payment, LIC and all, due date is now 31st July over. Deduction in respect of 54 to 54 GB, that is payment for property, payment for purchase of property, opening of capital gain account scheme, whatever it is. So DI, they have made a schedule, details of investment. Here, date-wise bifurcation will be there, whether payment has been made within 31st March or after 31st March. So that segregation is there in schedule DI. Remember, sir, if you have taken loan from deposit taking NBFC or systematically important non-deposit taking NBFC, and you have not paid the interest, you have taken a loan or you have borrowed from either from a deposit taking NBFC or systematically important non-deposit taking NBFC. Remember, if you have taken a loan and you are not paying the interest, it will be treated as statutory payment. And if you don't pay, if you have not paid either within the financial year or within the due date of payment of or within the due date of filing of return of income, it will not be allowed. So 43B, in 43B, they have added a point saying that if you have not paid the interest, its deduction will not be allowed. In case of the nature of employment, they have changed. Earlier it was only government, now it can be specified into central government, state government. Along with PAN, Aadhaar number can be given. In Schedule S2 also, along with PAN, Aadhaar number can also be used. There is a confusion, sir. People are asking me, is quoting of Aadhaar mandatory? $1 million question. Is quoting of Aadhaar mandatory in case of income tax return? No, because linking of Aadhaar has been deferred till 31st of March 2021. So since linking of Aadhaar has not been is not yet over, linking of Aadhaar has been extended. Linking of Aadhaar to PAN has been extended till 31st March 2021. Naturally, quoting of Aadhaar is not mandatory. They are in foreign source income and tax relief, big change. They have made it very exhaustive. It has become real cumbersome. It has become real cumbersome. You may not like it, but our liking hardly matters. In computation of income from business or profession, a new section E has been added in case of computation of income from life insurance business. The companies which are doing life insurance business, it's not life insurance agents, the companies which are taking life insurance business, which are doing life insurance business. Idea 7, one big change is there. The change is, as I told you when I was talking about initiative, that every organization, whether registered under 12A, 12AA, 1023C, Section 35, 80G, has to apply a FRIS. So they are asking whether application for registration is made as per new provision, section under which the registration is applied. Now they are saying that you cannot opt for 2 sections. Like So you remember, sir, there were organizations which were registered under 12AA also and 1023C also. Now you cannot register in both. If you register in both, it will be suspended. Both will be suspended. So section under which registration is applied, date on which the application for registration approval as per new section is made, and section of exemption of state for. So basically, you have to give details about registration. This point is very cumbersome. In case registration of a trust is cancelled, in case a registration of a trust is cancelled or trust is dissolved and it was registered under section 11, 12AA, 10/60. On accretion, on net accretion, 115 TD will apply. You remember, sir, since your trust was exempted, you have created it. Now you have to pay tax at the rate of maximum marginal rate. So look at this computation of tax liability, 115 TD. My last point of focus is new Form 26A. This new Form 26A, they have introduced a new rule, 114I. Now our 26A is not a static form, it's a dynamic form. It will keep on changing because in the rule they are saying, Rule 114I, they are saying that any information in possession of authority must be uploaded within 3 months from the day on which it came into the possession of authority. And mind you, look at the ambit of 26 days. What it contains: PAN, Aadhaar, name, date of birth, mobile number, email address. If this is not sufficient, look at point number 7. Serial number 7. Any other information in relation to sub-rule 2 of Rule 49. This sub-rule 2 talks about any information which has come in possession of authority as per section 90 of Income Tax Act, section 90A of Income Tax Act, Benami Property, any other act, Benami Property Act, foreign asset, like if you are holding asset in on a foreign destination and you have undisclosed foreign asset. Any suit filed against you. And mind you, serial number 2 is specified financial transaction, whether under Rule 114E, Rule 114F, Rule 114G, and mind you, it has become a dynamic form. So you understand the predicament. I'll stop my deliberation right now, and I'm transferring the microphone to organizers. It's all yours, Tulsianji. I wait for your questions. Vikasji.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Back to you.
Okay, thank
For
you.
question answer session, for which I am keeping around 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Vishnu, please start asking questions.
मेरा वीडियो स्टार्ट नहीं हो रहा है.
अच्छा, let me start then.
Yeah.
हेलो.
बताइए.
Hello. का वीडियो स्टार्ट नहीं हो रहा है.
हाँ, हो गया ठीक है.
हाँ.
Thank you Manoj Bhaiya for the session. and we have total 6 questions we have received from the chat box,
वाह वाह वाह।
and
और ये
3
काम करना
questions were taken up by me.
लोग को अलाउ करना क्वेश्चन रेज करने के लिए ओरली भी, वंस दिस
नहीं,
प्रोसेस
वो मैं बता रहा हूँ सर, ये क्या है ना कि जिनके पास भी कोई क्वेश्चंस है वो काइंडली चैट बॉक्स में लिख दें, हम लोग उनको रीड आउट कर देंगे सो दैट कि केओस से हम लोग बच सकें। सर एक क्वेश्चन है हमारे दिमाग में अपार्ट फ्रॉम दोज क्वेश्चन कि सर अभी जो चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के लिए आपने बताया ना कि 8TG और 12 जिसने रखा है उसको वापस फ्रेश अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा,
सबको लाइन में आना है। हाँ
हाँ, सबको लाइन में आना है। तो सर उसमें खैर ये बताया कि प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट के हिसाब से कि ऐसा कुछ प्रिकॉशन, क्योंकि अभी तक जो सर्टिफिकेट दी गई थी परपेचुइटी में दी गई थी कि जो बस दे दिया वो चलता रहेगा। अब जब वहाँ पे फ्रेश अप्लाई करेंगे तो हम लोग क्या क्या ध्यान रखना चाहिए और कुछ क्या क्या डॉक्यूमेंट मांग सकते हैं वो लोग?
चीज है बाबू विष्णु जी, उसमें 2-3 बातें हैं। पहला है, बोल रहे हैं कि 5 साल का ही सर्टिफिकेट देंगे आपको। जो नया सेट ऑफ रूल्स लाए हैं वहां बोल रहे हैं कि आपको 5 साल के लिए ही देंगे। दिस इज वन ऑफ बिगेस्ट बॉदरेशन। और ये लाया किस लिए गया था आपको मैं ऑब्जेक्ट बता दूं। क्या था, कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चैरिटेबल था, उसके पास सर्टिफिकेट नहीं था। बिकॉज कब उसको सर्टिफिकेट मिला था, मान लो 1919 में मिला था, 1921 में मिला था, पुराने एक्ट में मिला था, 1922 के एक्ट में मिला था, उसके बाद सर्टिफिकेट नहीं था, उनके लिए लाया गया। बट दे मेड एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, नाउ दे आर सेइंग दैट सब कोई लाइन में आ जाओ, दे वांट टू हैव अ यूनिक कोड नंबर। आई विल टेल यू, सबका एक यूनिक कोड नंबर दे देंगे, अलॉट कर देंगे। मतलब आपका सारा जो, और आप तो जानते ही हैं 80G में उन्होंने जो चेंजेस किए हैं कि आपका रिसीट 2000 से ज्यादा नहीं होगा। तो इसमें तो विष्णु जी क्या हुआ, आपका जो सारा काम था, अच्छा काम जो हम लोग बोलते हैं, वो तो खत्म हो गया, क्योंकि आपका सारा ऑडिट ट्रेल हो गया ना। अब तो सारा ऑडिट ट्रेल हो गया, एक्सपेंडिचर ट्रस्ट के ऊपर भी आपको लगेगा, TDS प्रोविजंस लगेंगे। तो जैसे बिजनेसेस मेंटेन करते हैं वैसे आप भी मेंटेन करोगे, तो आपका तो अच्छा काम तो होगा नहीं। अब जो है जेन्युइन जो काम करना है, तो उनके लिए तो एक सिंपल है, उनके लिए काफी अच्छा हुआ, जो जेन्युइन जो एंटिटीज हैं। बट इंडिया में एक ही दिक्कत है, मैं इसके बाद नहीं बोलूंगा। हाँ जी, बिकॉज ये रिकॉर्डिंग होती है। हाँ जी, हाँ विष्णु जी।
हाँ अच्छा सर, इसमें जो डेट आपने बताया कि 1 अक्टूबर से रजिस्ट्रेशन
चालू करना है और
नया एप्लीकेशन स्टार्ट करना है,
एप्लीकेशन खत्म हो जाएगा।
1 अक्टूबर तक खत्म हो जाएगा।
1 अक्टूबर से चालू होगा सर, और 31 दिसंबर तक आपको अप्लाई करना है, और वो प्रोसेस करके बाई 31 मार्च आपको दे देंगे जी।
अच्छा सर, एक क्वेश्चन आया है सर चैट बॉक्स पे,
हाँ
अविनाश अग्रवाल जी का। हाँ,
जी।
उनका क्वेश्चन है सर कि इफ टर्नओवर इज लेस देन 1 crore and the SSC does not want to go for 44 AD because of low margin profit, what are the options? Compulsory tax audit or otherwise?
टैक्स ऑडिट करवा लो ना, सबसे अच्छा, हम लोगों का भी थोड़ा इनकम होगा। लुकिंग एट प्रोफेशनल्स इंटरेस्ट, वी आर ऑल प्रोफेशनल्स, हमेशा तो बोलिए कि टैक्स ऑडिट करा लो,
तो सेफर रहेगा।
आपके लिए भी अच्छा है ना सर, हमारा प्रोफेशन भी तो प्रॉस्पर करे। लोगों को कभी ऐसा वो मत बताइए कि टैक्स ऑडिट के बिना कर दीजिए, मत बोलिए कभी भी। हाँ जी।
एक सर सेकेंड क्वेश्चन आया है चिंतारमन सेन गुप्ता जी का। उन्होंने लिखा है कि फोर्थ प्रोविजो टू सेक्शन 206C सबसेक्शन 1G states that the authorized dealer shall not collect the sum on an amount in respect of which the sum has been collected by the seller.
हाँ, यदि उसके ऊपर ऑलरेडी कहीं TDS हो गया है तो नेचुरली यहाँ नहीं आएगा। वेरी करेक्ट।
आपका सेकंड क्वेश्चन है सर कि व्हाट इज सच सम which is referred to in this proviso?
देखिए सिंपल है, जब एक ही ट्रांजेक्शन है, 2 जगह तो TDS नहीं, TCS नहीं होगा सर। कहीं TDS कट गया है तो TCS में नहीं आएगा। सच सम मीन्स द अमाउंट विच वी आर रेफरिंग टू, जिस अमाउंट के लिए हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं उसके ऊपर यदि कहीं TDS कटा हुआ है तो नेचुरली फिर टीसीएस का बात ही नहीं। जी विष्णु जी।
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है आशीष रस्तोगी जी का। उनका क्वेश्चन है कि सेक्शन 206C says that seller is liable to collect tax for sales above 50 lakhs. Issue is if sales is 60 lakhs, then TCS is to be done for 10 lakhs or entire 60 lakhs. 10 लाख डिफरेंशियल अमाउंट पे।
जी जी नेक्स्ट।
हेलो हेलो।
हाँ जी
सर उसमें एक और है कि टीसीएस सर एट द टाइम ऑफ सेल कटेगा कि एट द टाइम ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट?
सर यहाँ क्या होता है कि जिस दिन उसको डेबिट करेंगे, यदि डेबिट पहले करेंगे तो उस दिन होगा, यदि रिसीट पहले होगा तो उस दिन होगा।
अच्छा, मतलब विच एवर इज अर्लियर। अगर एडवांस
हाँ,
पेमेंट
सारा सब जगह वही है बाबू, सरकार को पैसा पहले देना है,
पहले देना है।
ये तो सिंपल है, इसमें तो सोचना ही नहीं है, कभी मत सोचो।
ओके,
नेवर अप्लाई योर माइंड।
हाँ, एडवांस पेमेंट, एडवांस अगर रिसीट हो रहा है तो एडवांस में कर लो।
हाँ, कुछ भी है सरकार को पहले देना है, तो अर्लियर वाला प्रोविजन याद रखिए, इसको कॉम्प्लिकेट मत कीजिए कभी भी।
पहले सरकार फिर अपने, ठीक है,
रिवेन्यू को ध्यान में रखते हुए करना है।
हाँ, गवर्नमेंट को ध्यान रखना, अपना तो ध्यान रखना नहीं है, पेंडेमिक है। हाँ ठीक ठीक, विष्णु जी बोल रहे हैं तो ठीक है।
हाँ सर, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है पवन केडिया जी की तरफ से।
क्वेश्चन से निर्दोष जी का भी है।
हाँ,
निर्दोष अग्रवाल जी का
1-10 से है भैया, 1-10 से है।
What about money? What about money for sales made prior to 1st October 20, but money received after that date?
देखिए सिंपल बात है, यदि मान लीजिए पहले ही 50 लाख से ऊपर हो गया है तो नेचुरली वो तो मान लीजिए ये प्रोविजन कब से एप्लीकेबल है, 1/10/2020 से, बट ड्यूरिंग द टिल 30th September we have already received 60 lakhs, so naturally we can't go back and collect, so any collection afterwards it will be assumed that 50 lakhs has already been collected and any amount received beyond that 0.1%. Yes sir.
So next question is taken by the Bidasaria ji, the mentor of the session.
अरे बोलिए बोलिए सर।
हाँ हाँ सर, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज बाय विशाल गुप्ता जी, सॉरी बाय चित्रंजन सेन गुप्ता। इस सेक्शन 112A applicable if STT was not paid at the time of acquisition of shares?
सर वो एक चीज बताइए, वो तो आपका यदि मान लीजिए ये शेयर पे था तो उस समय जब परचेज किए तो एसटीटी नहीं था।
हाँ,
उनको अनम्यूट कीजिए चित्रंजन सेन गुप्ता को। हेलो।
हाँ सर बोलून दादा बोलून।
हेलो, वो है नहीं लगता है। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पढ़िए, वो नहीं है लगता है।
अच्छा, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज फ्रॉम आनंद बुधिया। ही इज आस्किंग रिगार्डिंग डिपॉजिट ऑफ 1 crore और हायर in current bank account. Does it apply only to current account? Hope it is not applicable to individual savings or NRE bank accounts.
वहां तो करेंट ही लिखा है, वहां करेंट लिखा है। आप बोल रहे हैं वहां करेंट अकाउंट ही लिखा है। यदि तो नहीं, डिपॉजिट का है, अभी तो करेंट अकाउंट वर्ड यूज हुआ है, लेकिन अगले साल धीरे धीरे गवर्नमेंट थोड़ा सा धीरे चलता है, अभी करेंट अकाउंट ही है सर। वो जो प्रोवाइजो है 139(1) क्लॉज बी में 7th प्रोवाइजो, उसमें अभी करेंट अकाउंट ही है। यस सर।
Yeah. Next question is from Pawan Kedia. He is asking that is TDS applicable on cash discount or other schemes under section 206 subsection 1 then clause H. Is TCS applicable?
वो देखिए वहां तो रिसीट पे बात करते हैं सर, द लैंग्वेज इज ऑन रिसीट, तो डिस्काउंट जो देंगे वो तो डिडक्ट करके ही आएगा ना सर, रिसीट.
Yes.
It's about receipt, sir. So receipt after cash discount only.
The extended question is asked by Vikram Kumar Saraf. Is this TCS applicable also on agricultural produce?
This is tough question in the sense that Act has not specified anything.
Okay. Yeah. Next
Act is
question.
not specific.
Okay.
So in a sense, it seems that it will be applicable. But I am telling you tough because you have to check. The notification has to be checked. Because we have to see notification, if any, has been issued exempting agricultural produce under section 206C(1)(h). But I have not come across any notification exempting agricultural produce. लेकिन उसमें एक दिक्कत है, वहां जो है ना वो 10 करोड़ से ऊपर का सेलर है, इधर बायर है, थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लिकेट हो जा रहा है. आप एक काम करिए ना विष्णु जी, इनका जो क्वेश्चन है ना, इनको बोलिए थोड़ा डिटेलिंग करके हमको मेल कर देंगे. मैं नोटिफिकेशन
इनसे मंगवा लेता हूँ.
आपको आ जाऊंगा. अच्छा रहेगा कि एक प्रॉपर रिप्लाई हो जाए इनका. तो चेक नोटिफिकेशन.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question is from Dilip Kejriwal. Whether TDS is to be deducted on expenses like financial help to payments to shopkeeper for distribution of food materials in the case of trust. Whether TDS is to be deducted on the expenses like financial help to payments to shopkeeper for distribution of food materials in the case of trust.
थोड़ा क्लैरिफाई कीजिए.
Dilip Kejriwal ji, whether you are on the, please unmute yourself.
नहीं कर सकते सर. दिलीप केजरीवाल जी पर हैंड रेस कीजिएगा. कर दिया अनम्यूट.
हेलो दिलीप केजरीवाल जी.
सर अनम्यूट करना पड़ेगा. अनम्यूट के लिए रिक्वेस्ट भेजें आपको.
हाँ.
हेलो.
हाँ बोलिए.
हेलो.
हाँ दिलीप केजरीवाल जी बोलिए.
हाँ, ट्रस्ट को एक्सपेंडिचर करता है इन केस ऑफ फाइनेंशियल हेल्प हो या कोई मटेरियल परचेज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन करना है. मान लीजिए हम 1 लाख रुपया का मटेरियल परचेज किए दुकानदार से और हमको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना है अमंग 100 पीपल, तो जो हम शॉपकीपर को पेमेंट करेंगे, वेदर टीडीएस हैज टू बी डिडक्टेड ऑन दैट अमाउंट.
परचेज है भैया, ये तो
परचेज, ट्रस्ट तो परचेज किया डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के लिए.
परचेज पे कहाँ टीडीएस है भाई मेरा?
तो ट्रस्ट के लिए तो एक्सपेंडिचर हो गया सर. ट्रस्ट के लिए तो इन केस ऑफ एक्सपेंडिचर
परचेज है सर.
और फाइनेंशियल हम हेल्प कर दें तो क्या टीडीएस क्या काटना पड़ेगा? टीडीएस का लायबिलिटी आएगा.
My question is very simple, sir. Is there any TDS on purchase?
या सर.
परचेज के ऊपर TDS है अभी तक?
नहीं है सर, लेकिन मैं आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट एक्सपेंडिचर फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ ट्रस्ट. दिस इज एक्सपेंडिचर इन द केस ऑफ ट्रस्ट चैरिटी. मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है सर.
मैं आपको सीधा सीधा ही बता रहा हूँ, मैं टेक्निकल बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ अभी भी. मैं आपको बोल रहा हूँ
नहीं, परचेज पे कोई टैक्स नहीं है सर. मटेरियल परचेज पे कोई टैक्स नहीं है अभी.
तो आप तो उसी की बात कर रहे हैं सर.
सर मेरा थोड़ा टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन है, मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ.
टेक्निकल नहीं है, एकदम टेक्निकल नहीं है आपका क्वेश्चन. मैं तो आपका क्वेश्चन टेक्निकल होता तो मैं टेक्निकल आंसर देता सर. आप चीज समझिए सर. ट्रस्ट ने परचेज किया, तो जो परचेज किया ट्रस्ट ने, तो वो तो परचेज है सर. परचेज के ऊपर कोई टीडीएस है नहीं. आप बोल रहे हैं दुकानदार के ऊपर टीडीएस काटू क्या? काटना ही नहीं है भैया, सवाल ही नहीं उठता. आपके लिए नया सेक्शन थोड़ी इवॉल्व होगा.
ठीक है सर. ओके.
और यदि आपको और कुछ चाहिए भैया तो और इसमें ज्यादा आपको लगता है कि टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन है आपका, तो टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन विष्णु जी को भेजिएगा, मैं उसका टेक्निकल रिप्लाई दूंगा.
ओके.
So
Thank you, sir.
All the question can be sent to me by the mail.
Thank you, sir.
एकदम. प्रेसिडेंट को मेल ही करेगा भाई, ऐसे थोड़ी।
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, sir. Next question is from Raj Rungta and Ranjit Kedia. Their question is, in case of income below 2.5 lakhs, whether limit of 1 crore deposit is per bank account or including or all the bank account
सर वो
inclusive?
क्या बोल रहा है कि करेंट अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट हुआ, सारा जोड़ लेंगे सर।
All current account, yes, sir.
हाँ, सारा जोड़ लेंगे।
Yeah.
विष्णु, मेरा पहला प्रोग्राम भी एकदम टाइमली क्लोज हुआ है, 2 से 4 वाला भी टाइमली क्लोज हुआ, ये भी लग रहा है उस तरफ ही जा रहा है।
Yeah.
एकदम सही सर, एकदम सही है।
अच्छा है ना, 2 से 4 भी एकदम टाइमली स्टार्ट हो। आपका तो प्रोग्राम खैर मस्ती।
सर एक क्वेश्चन आए हैं और मेरे व्हाट्सएप पे आए हैं।
हाँ,
भेजने वाले हमारे पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट दिलीप अग्रवाल जी हैं।
अच्छा।
वो पूछ रहे हैं कि सर मर्जर से रिलेटेड है कि सपोज कोई एसएससी किसी एक्स कंपनी में 100 शेयर्स होल्ड करता है, एक्स कंपनी मर्ज होगी वाई कंपनी से और स्वेप रेशियो के कारण उसको 100 के बदले में 80 शेयर्स मिलता है कंपनी वाई का। तो जो एसएससी एक्स है वो अपने बुक्स में इसको कैसे दिखाएगा? दिस इज हिज क्वेश्चन।
उनको बोलो कि ये क्वेश्चन मेरे को मेल करेंगे, ये मेरे टॉपिक से रिलेटेड नहीं है, बाद में रिप्लाई करेगा। दिलीप जी मेरे को मेल कर दीजिए और
ओके सर,
मेरा मेल आईडी होगा।
ओके
और बोलिए।
Next question is from Ranjit Kedia. If there is no turnover up to September 2020 and maybe some income till March 2020, whether liable to pay advance tax for September 20?
आपका इनकम के ऊपर एडवांस टैक्स होता है सर।
ठीक है।
तो आपका तो टर्नओवर नहीं है, मतलब कोई इनकम नहीं है ना सर, तो सितंबर वाला तो देना नहीं है।
लेकिन सर
जी
हेलो सर, इसमें एक इशू ये है सर, एक जैसे कंपनी जनवरी में इनकॉर्पोरेट हुई है, ठीक है?
विकास जी बोलिए।
हाँ, जनवरी में इनकॉर्पोरेट हुई है और उसके इनकम जो भी है, तो एडवांस जब असेसमेंट होके आता है ना सर, तो उसमें वो 234BC का डिफॉल्ट चार्ज कर देता है।
इसमें एक दिक्कत है, उनको तो क्या है, बस आपसे पैसा लेना है। गवर्नमेंट वाला बात छोड़ दीजिए, गवर्नमेंट का देखिए, लेकिन आपका यदि इनकम है, मेरी कंपनी नहीं स्टार्ट हुई तो मैं क्या प्रायर पीरियड का कहां से दूंगा सर आपको?
नहीं, वो एक इशू आ रहा है सर। वो
अब मालूम है मुझे मेरे पास ये है कि भैया मेरी कंपनी इनकॉर्पोरेट हुई बाद में और यू आर आस्किंग मी टू पे फॉर, आई हैव बीन इनकॉर्पोरेटेड इन जैन, यू आर आस्किंग मी टू पे फॉर जून, लास्ट जून। फिजिकली पॉसिबल।
तो इसका कैसे क्या होगा सर? गिवरांस में लिखने से होगा?
वो ई निवारण में लिखिए उनको,
ई निवारण में। हाँ
भैया आप मेरा निवारण करो, नहीं तो स्टे में जाएंगे हम लोग और नहीं तो रीट में जाएंगे, वो जरूर आपका करेंगे, क्योंकि ये इम्प्रैक्टिकल है।
इम्प्रैक्टिकल है सर,
इम्प्रैक्टिकल है ना, इसमें टेक्निकल कुछ नहीं है, वेरी वेरी सिंपल इज इम्प्रैक्टिकल। क्या विवेक जी सही बोल रहा हूँ?
एकदम सही बोल रहे हैं सर।
विवेक जी का अप्रूवल चाहिए, ऐसे थोड़े होगा।
अरे नहीं भैया, आप जो बोलेंगे 100% सही है।
थोड़ा सा फोर्स करना था, चुपचाप बैठे थे ना, तो मैं देखा है।
अरे नहीं,
आप बोलेंगे ना सर?
हाँ जी, खत्म हो गया सारा क्वेश्चन।
Yeah, one more question is there, whether we should take it up.
Last question.
Yeah, this is the last question.
Yeah. Okay.
This is from Rajesh Kumar Kejriwal. In case of section 44AB, is limit of 5% for cash receipt on gross receipt or turnover as per section 44AB, or including receipt of bank loan, receipt from partners, because such transactions are not considered as turnover.
नहीं, ये सारा है। एनी रिसीट, वो जो 5 करोड़ वाले के लिए बात कर रहे हैं ये।
अच्छा,
ही इज टॉकिंग अबाउट 5 करोड़ जो लिमिट है ना, वहाँ 5% है, 5% ऑफ एग्रीगेट रिसीट, 5% ऑफ एग्रीगेट पेमेंट। तो हाँ सर, वो सारा है सर जी। हाँ विष्णु जी।
So today's question answer session is over. If any further question, I request members to send to Vishnu ji in.
विष्णु जी के पास आएगा तो मेरे पास आ जाएगा।
In your mail itself.
प्रेसिडेंट बहुत जल्दी मेल भेजते हैं।
I am highly thankful to CA Manoj Tiwari ji. I am highly thankful to CA Manoj Tiwari ji for an elaborate coverage and enlightening our members in detail in a very, very slow and steady manner on today's topics. And he has answered almost all the questions of our members. And now I invite CA Vivek Banka, our General Secretary, to deliver formal vote of thanks. CA Vivek Punkaji, please.
Yes, thank you, Vidyasaria ji. Good evening. And it gives me immense pleasure in offering vote of thanks to CA Manoj Tiwari ji. On behalf of VIPCA, I would like to thank CA Manoj Tiwari ji for sharing his views on the topic recent amendment in income tax, effective dates, and change in the ITRs. Really, sir, the session was very informative and interactive, and I am sure it will give the value addition to our professional knowledge. Thanks once again, sir. And thanks to all viewers, without whom the program would be a success. Thanks to all. Yes,
Thank you, Manoj sir.
Yes,
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Manoj sir, many
Everybody
thanks.
for listening to me.
Nice. It was a very nice session, sir.
It has been
Sir,
completed in a very timely manner.
Timely manner, attendance was
Yes,
very good.